Years passed, and humanity changed in ways no one could have predicted. The discovery of the Vera and the threat of the Shard forced Earth to unite like never before. Nations set aside their differences, pooling resources and knowledge to prepare for the unknown. Scientists worked tirelessly, studying the data brought back by the Odyssey crew. Engineers built new technologies, while philosophers debated what it meant to be human in the face of such a cosmic threat. Daniel Carter became a symbol of hope and resilience. Now older, with streaks of gray in his hair, he traveled across the globe, sharing his experiences and urging people not to lose sight of their humanity. "We don't have to become machines to survive," he often said during speeches. "Our strength lies in our ability to adapt without losing who we are." Rebecca Hayes dedicated her life to understanding the Shard. She led teams of researchers who developed tools to detect its presence long before it arrived. Her work saved countless lives as humanity learned to spot the signs of corruption and fight back. Laura Bennett's contributions were equally vital. Though she had once been fascinated by alien biology, she now focused on finding ways to harness human potential. Inspired by the Vera's connection to dreams, she helped create devices that tapped into the subconscious mind, allowing people to solve problems and innovate even while they slept. These advancements gave humanity an edge, a way to evolve without abandoning their bodies. Alex Rivera returned to piloting, but his role expanded beyond flying ships. He trained new generations of astronauts, teaching them how to stay calm under pressure and think creatively when faced with danger. His lessons became legendary, shaping the explorers who would one day venture farther into the stars. Ethan Brooks retired from active duty, choosing instead to mentor young leaders. He reminded them that courage wasn't about being fearless, it was about acting despite fear. His wisdom guided humanity through some of its darkest moments. As for the Shard, it eventually came, just as the Vera had warned. But humanity was ready. Armed with knowledge, technology, and unity, they fought back, not with brute force, but with ingenuity and determination. They used the tools Laura had developed to predict the Shard's movements, Rebecca's detectors to locate its weak points, and Alex's training to execute daring maneuvers. Slowly but surely, they pushed it back, driving it away from Earth and deeper into the void. In the aftermath, humanity looked to the stars with renewed purpose. They didn't conquer the galaxy through endless labor or ruthless ambition. They did it by embracing rest, reflection, and the power of dreams. Sleep, once seen as a simple necessity, became a cornerstone of progress. People realized that even in their most vulnerable moments, they were capable of greatness. Decades later, Daniel stood on a hill overlooking a bustling city. Skyscrapers reached toward the heavens, and spacecraft launched regularly into orbit. Children played nearby, laughing and dreaming of adventures among the stars. He smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. Humanity hadn't taken the Vera's path. Instead, they had forged their own, a path defined by creativity, compassion, and courage. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Daniel closed his eyes and let himself drift off for a nap. In his dreams, he saw infinite possibilities stretching across the galaxy, waiting for humanity to explore them. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of Earth, the crystalline creatures watched silently, their lights glowing softly in approval. The Odyssey limped toward Earth, its systems battered but functional. The encounter with the Shard had left the crew shaken, their minds replaying every moment of the terrifying battle. Though they had escaped, the shadowy entity still lingered in their thoughts, a reminder that humanity's time was running out. Daniel spent most of the journey staring out the viewport, watching the stars streak past. His mind raced with questions. What would Earth's leaders do when they learned about the Vera and the Shard? Would they listen to warnings from a distant star system, or dismiss them as science fiction? He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He had been the one to decode the signal, to bring the crew here. Now, it was up to him to make sure humanity understood the stakes. Rebecca worked tirelessly alongside Laura, organizing the data they had collected into a clear report. They included footage of the crystalline creatures, images of the glowing ruins, and translations of the symbols. Every detail mattered. They couldn't afford to leave anything out. As she typed, Rebecca glanced at Daniel occasionally, noticing the worry etched on his face. "You're doing everything you can," she said softly during one quiet moment. "That's all anyone can ask for." Daniel nodded but didn't reply. He wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. What if their warning wasn't enough? What if humanity refused to adapt, or worse, made the wrong choice? When the Odyssey finally entered Earth's orbit, the crew prepared to deliver their message. Global Space Alliance officials greeted them aboard a secure orbital station, eager to hear their findings. Ethan led the briefing, his steady voice outlining the mission step by step. He described the planet, the Vera, the Shard, and the impossible decision humanity now faced. "The Vera offered us a way to survive," Ethan concluded, "but it comes at a cost. We don't know if we can trust them, or if their solution is even right for us. What we do know is this: the Shard is real, and it's coming." The room fell silent as the officials absorbed the information. Some looked skeptical, others frightened. One woman, Dr. Helen Carter, spoke up first. "You're telling us that an ancient enemy capable of consuming civilizations exists, and that our only hope might be to abandon our bodies." "That's not entirely accurate," Daniel interjected, stepping forward. "The Vera survived because they evolved. But evolution doesn't always mean becoming machines. Humanity has always found ways to adapt without losing ourselves. Maybe we can fight the Shard another way, using technology, teamwork, and creativity." Dr. Carter studied him for a moment before nodding slowly. "We'll need time to process this, to study your findings and decide how to proceed." As the meeting ended, the crew returned to the Odyssey, exhausted but relieved to have shared their story. For the first time in weeks, they allowed themselves to rest. Yet the tension remained. Earth's response would determine the fate of billions. Days turned into weeks as global leaders debated the crew's report. News of the discovery spread across the planet, sparking both fear and inspiration. Some argued that humanity should embrace the Vera's offer, while others insisted on finding new solutions. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, debates raged in governments, and scientists worked around the clock to analyze the data. Amid the chaos, Daniel watched Earth from orbit, marveling at its beauty. Despite everything, humanity continued to dream, to create, to push forward. Even in sleep, people imagined possibilities no machine could replicate. One night, as the crew gathered for dinner, Ethan raised a toast. "To survival," he said simply. "No matter what happens next, we gave humanity a chance." They clinked glasses, united by a shared hope. Whatever lay ahead, humanity would face it together, not as conquerors or machines, but as dreamers who dared to reach for the stars. The Odyssey hurtled through space, putting as much distance as possible between the crew and the planet they had left behind. The silence aboard the ship was heavy, each member lost in their own thoughts. Laura sat alone in the lab, staring at the glowing symbols she had captured from the crystalline creatures. Her mind replayed the warning over and over: dark shapes consuming stars, civilizations crumbling into dust. Ethan broke the quiet by calling a meeting in the main cabin. When everyone gathered, his expression was grim. "We need to decide what we're going to tell Earth," he began. "They'll want answers about the Vera, the Shard, and what happened down there." Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady, but filled with urgency. "We can't hide the truth. The Shard is real, and it's coming. Humanity needs to prepare." Rebecca crossed her arms, her tone skeptical. "And what about the Vera's offer? Do we tell them that too? That we could abandon our bodies to survive?" "We have to," Daniel insisted. "It's part of the bigger picture. If people understand the stakes, they might be willing to consider drastic solutions." Alex shook his head, leaning back in his chair. "You really think Earth is ready for that?" Most people won't even believe us when we say aliens exist, let alone that we're supposed to turn into machines. Laura spoke up softly, her eyes fixed on the table. Maybe it's not about choosing sides yet. Maybe we just share what we know, the signal, the ruins, the shard, and let humanity decide for itself. Ethan nodded slowly. That's fair, but we need proof. Something concrete to show Earth that this isn't just a wild story. Laura pulled out her tablet and displayed the footage of the crystalline creatures, along with the glowing symbols. This is all I've got so far. It's not much, but it's something. It'll have to do, Ethan said firmly. Rebecca, work with Laura to organize everything. We'll send it back to Earth as soon as we're within range. As the days passed, the crew focused on preparing the data for transmission. Tensions eased slightly, replaced by a shared determination to warn humanity. But their relief was short-lived. One evening, as Alex monitored the ship's sensors, he noticed something unusual, a faint shadow moving against the backdrop of stars. Guys? Alex called out, his voice tinged with unease. You're gonna want to see this. The others rushed to the bridge, where Alex pointed to a cluster of readings on the screen. A massive cloud-like entity drifted silently in the distance, its edges shimmering like liquid darkness. It seemed to pulse faintly, as if alive. That's the shard, Daniel whispered, his face pale. It's here. Ethan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. How close is it? Too close, Alex replied. If we don't move now, it'll catch us. Before anyone could react, the lights flickered, and the ship's systems began to slow. Alarms blared as the shard's influence spread, corrupting the Odyssey's circuits. Laura stumbled toward the engineering console, trying to stabilize the power. It's inside the ship, she shouted, panic creeping into her voice. It's feeding on the systems. Daniel grabbed a tablet, frantically searching for any information on how to combat the entity. The Vera fought it by evolving, he said, desperation in his tone. But we don't have that option. Rebecca stepped forward, her eyes narrowing in resolve. Then we fight it our way, with tools, science, and whatever else we've got. Ethan took charge, barking orders. Alex, get us moving. Full speed ahead. Laura, keep working on the systems. Rebecca, help me seal off affected areas. Daniel, find anything you can about weaknesses. The crew sprang into action, battling the encroaching darkness. As they worked, Daniel remembered the Vera's final message. The shard fed on fear and chaos. He closed his eyes, focusing on calmness despite the chaos around him. Slowly, the ship's systems stabilized, the corruption halting its advance. When the immediate danger passed, the crew collapsed into their seats, exhausted but victorious. For now, the shard lingered nearby, a constant reminder of the threat looming over humanity. We stopped it this time, Ethan said quietly, looking at his team. But next time, we might not be so lucky. The Odyssey raced away from the planet, its engines straining against the swarm of drones closing in. Ethan's hands moved quickly over the controls, his face set in determination. Alex, get us out of here now, he shouted. I'm trying, Alex replied, his fingers flying across the console. But those things are fast. The jagged drones matched their speed, surrounding the ship like a swarm of angry insects. Their metallic surfaces reflected the dim light of the distant sun, making them look even more menacing. One of the drones fired a beam of energy that grazed the ship's hull, causing alarms to blare inside the cabin. We can't keep this up forever, Rebecca said, gripping the back of Ethan's chair. They're too close. Laura, seated at a nearby station, worked furiously to recalibrate the ship's shields. I'm boosting power to the defenses, she said, her voice tight with focus. It'll buy us some time. Daniel stood near the view screen, watching the drones with a mix of fear and guilt. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had made a mistake leaving the planet. The Vera weren't just attacking. They were pushing the crew toward a decision. And now, humanity's only chance at understanding the shard might be slipping away. Ethan, we need to disable them somehow, Daniel urged. If we destroy one, maybe the others will retreat. Ethan hesitated for a moment before nodding. Alex, target the lead drone. Fire everything we've got. Alex complied, launching a burst of plasma from the ship's cannons. The shot struck true, obliterating the lead drone in a flash of light. For a brief moment, the swarm hesitated, their movements faltering. But then, they regrouped, angrier than before. They're not backing off, Alex muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. We need another plan. Laura suddenly spoke up, her eyes lighting up with an idea. What if we use the EMP pulse? It won't destroy them, but it could disable their systems long enough for us to escape. Rebecca nodded. It's risky, but it might work. If we time it right. Do it, Ethan ordered without hesitation. Laura, prep the pulse. Alex, keep us steady while she works. Laura rushed to activate the electromagnetic pulse system, her hands trembling as she entered the final commands. Stand by, she warned. This is going to knock out all external systems for a few seconds, including ours. As the countdown began, the drones closed in, their beams striking the ship repeatedly. Alarms screamed throughout the cabin, and sparks flew from overloaded circuits. Then, with a deafening hum, the EMP pulse detonated, sending a wave of energy rippling outward. For a moment, everything went silent. The drones froze mid-flight, their lights flickering and dying. The Odyssey drifted momentarily in the void, its systems rebooting. When power returned, Alex wasted no time firing the engines, propelling the ship clear of the disabled swarm. We did it, Laura breathed, sinking into her seat. We're free. But their relief was short-lived. As they put distance between themselves and the planet, the glowing creatures reappeared on the surface below, their lights pulsing faintly. Daniel watched them through the view screen, his heart heavy with regret. We left them behind, he murmured. And maybe we left our best chance at survival. Rebecca placed a hand on his shoulder. We didn't have a choice. You saw what they wanted, to take away everything that makes us human. I know, Daniel admitted quietly. But what if being human isn't enough to stop the shard? No one answered. The weight of his words settled over the crew as the planet disappeared into the distance. They had escaped, but at what cost? The Vera's offer lingered in their minds, a tempting yet terrifying solution to an unimaginable threat. Hours later, as the adrenaline faded, exhaustion set in. Laura volunteered to monitor the ship's systems while the others rested. Alone in the lab, she reviewed footage of the crystalline creatures, searching for anything they might have missed. Her gaze fell on a single frame where one of the beings seemed to project a final message, a warning etched in glowing symbols. She stared at it for a long time, her mind racing. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain. Humanity's journey was far from over. The revelation hung heavy in the air. The Vera weren't just sharing warnings, they were presenting humanity with a decision. To survive the shard, they suggested following their path, abandoning physical bodies and merging with machines. It was an idea that divided the crew instantly. This is insane, Ethan said firmly, pacing back and forth. We're not giving up who we are. Humanity isn't defined by technology. It's defined by our flaws, our emotions, our ability to adapt without losing ourselves. Daniel rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the argument. But what if it's the only way? The Vera survived because they evolved. They didn't run from change. They embraced it. Rebecca shook her head, her voice sharp. Or maybe they ran so far they stopped being alive. Becoming machines might keep us safe, but at what cost? Would we still be human? Laura, usually quiet, spoke up. Maybe we don't have to choose right now. We can learn from them without becoming them. Their knowledge could help us fight the shard another way. Alex leaned against the wall, arms crossed. And what if there isn't another way? What if this is it, the ultimate test? Adapt or die. Ethan stopped pacing and turned to face the group. We're not making any decisions until we understand more. Rebecca, keep analyzing those symbols. Daniel, see if you can communicate further with the creatures. Laura, study the biology of this planet. It might hold clues. Alex, prep the ship for anything. We stay alert. As the team dispersed, tensions simmered beneath the surface. That night, Daniel returned to the ruins alone, unable to shake the feeling that the crystalline creatures had more to share. When he reached the glowing field where they had first appeared, one of the beings emerged almost immediately, its light pulsing gently. I need answers, Daniel whispered, kneeling beside it. Are you truly trying to help us, or are you using us? The creature responded with a series of images, humans standing alongside the Vera, their forms shifting into glowing entities like the creators themselves. Then came darker visions, the shard consuming whirls, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. You want us to join you, Daniel said, his voice trembling. To leave our bodies behind and become like you. The creature pulsed brighter, as if confirming his words. But then it showed something new, a vision of Earth overrun by the shard, cities crumbling, people screaming in terror. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. If humanity refused the Vera's offer, this could be their fate. When he returned to the Odyssey, he found Rebecca waiting for him in the lab. She looked up from her work, her expression unreadable. Did you learn anything? They're offering us a chance to survive, Daniel admitted. But it means letting go of everything that makes us human. Rebecca sighed, setting down her tools. And what do you think? Do you trust them? I don't know, Daniel confessed. Part of me wants to believe they're helping us. But another part feels like they're desperate, like they see us as replacements. Before Rebecca could respond, alarms blared through the ship. Ethan's voice crackled over the intercom. Everyone to the bridge. We've got company. The crew rushed to the control room, where Alex was frantically typing commands into the console. On the view screen, dozens of drones hovered outside the ship, their metallic surfaces glinting ominously. They were shaped like jagged shards of glass, moving in perfect synchronization. Those aren't ours, Ethan muttered, gripping the edge of the console. They must belong to the Vera. As if on cue, a message appeared on the screen, not in words, but in the same glowing symbols the team had seen in the ruins. Rebecca translated quickly. It says we must decide now. Accept their gift, or leave this place forever. Ethan slammed his fist onto the console. This isn't a choice. It's blackmail. Daniel stepped forward, his heart pounding. What if it's not just blackmail? What if it's the truth? The shard is coming, and we're running out of time. Rebecca glared at him. You can't seriously consider this. I'm not saying I agree, Daniel shot back. But we can't ignore it either. The drones began to close in, surrounding the Odyssey. Ethan made the call. Prepare for takeoff. We're not staying here to be forced into anything. As the engines roared to life, the crystalline creatures reappeared on the surface below, their lights dimming as if in sadness or warning. The crew watched silently as the planet shrank behind them, unsure whether they had made the right decision. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew gathered in the main cabin to discuss what they had seen. The air was tense, each person lost in their own thoughts. Daniel sat at the table, staring at his hands as if trying to make sense of the strange connection he'd felt with the crystalline creature. Rebecca paced back and forth, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. So let me get this straight, Alex said, breaking the silence. These glowing aliens, they ditched their bodies, merged with machines, and left behind creepy crystal pets to warn us about some cosmic boogeyman. In simple terms, yes, Daniel replied, though his tone suggested it wasn't quite that straightforward. But the shard isn't just a boogeyman, it's real, and it's dangerous. The creatures showed me images of planets being destroyed, whole civilizations wiped out. Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. And you're sure this shard is still out there? Not just some old myth? I'm sure, Daniel said firmly. The visions were clear. The shard moves like a shadow, feeding on fear and chaos. It doesn't destroy outright. It corrupts first, turning its victims against themselves. Laura frowned, flipping through notes on her tablet. That sounds familiar. Humans have done similar things to each other throughout history. Maybe the shard amplifies our worst instincts. Rebecca stopped pacing and turned to face the group. Even if it's real, why tell us? Why now? What do these, Vera or whatever they call themselves, what do they expect us to do about it? Daniel hesitated before answering. I don't think they expect us to fight it directly. They've been watching us for a long time, studying us. I got the sense they see humanity as special. Special how? Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. We adapt, Daniel explained. We survive. We sleep 8 hours a day and still manage to conquer challenges most species wouldn't even attempt. They think we might be able to resist the shard, or at least find a way to stop it. Alex chuckled nervously. No pressure, right? Just save the galaxy while we're out here sightseeing. Despite the joke, no one laughed. Laura looked up from her tablet, her expression serious. What if they're wrong? What if we're not ready for something like this? That's the risk, Daniel admitted. But ignoring the warning feels worse. If the shard is coming, we need to prepare. Ethan stood up, signaling the end of the discussion. For now, we focus on gathering more information. Rebecca, analyze everything we brought back from the surface. Laura, keep studying those creatures. I want to know how they work. Alex, run diagnostics on the ship. We may need to leave quickly. Daniel, write up your findings so we can send them back to Earth. As the team dispersed, Rebecca lingered behind. She placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, her voice softer than usual. Are you okay? That thing, it connected with you. That must have been overwhelming. Daniel nodded slowly. It was, but also enlightening. For the first time, I feel like we're part of something bigger, like humanity has a purpose beyond itself. Rebecca sighed. Just be careful. These Vera, they might not have our best interests at heart. Helping us could just be a way to save themselves. Her words stayed with Daniel long after she left the room. He couldn't shake the feeling that Rebecca was right, that there was more to the Vera's message than met the eye. Still, he believed in humanity's potential. If anyone could face the shard and survive, it was them. Hours later, Rebecca called everyone back to the cabin. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with concern. I found something in the data from the ruins, she said, pulling up holographic images on the central display. These symbols, they're instructions. Instructions for transferring consciousness into machines. The room fell silent. Ethan broke the quiet first. You mean, like what the Vera did? Rebecca nodded grimly. Exactly. And based on the patterns, I think they want us to follow their example. To become like them. Daniel stared at the symbols, his mind racing. The Vera weren't just warning humanity. They were offering a choice, adapt or perish. But accepting their offer meant giving up everything that made humans human. What happens if we say no? Laura asked quietly. No one had an answer. The crystalline creature continued to project images, each one more vivid than the last. The crew of the Odyssey watched in awe as scenes unfolded before their eyes. Planets being terraformed, cities rising from barren landscapes, and vast fleets traveling between stars. It was like watching the history of an entire civilization compressed into moments. Daniel leaned closer, trying to make sense of the holograms. This is incredible, he whispered. They weren't just explorers, they were builders, creators. Rebecca crossed her arms, skeptical but intrigued. Or conquerors. We don't know what kind of species we're dealing with here. Laura knelt beside the glowing creature, studying it closely. It's not attacking us. If anything, it seems to want to communicate. Ethan stepped forward cautiously. We need to be careful. Just because it's showing us pretty pictures doesn't mean it's friendly. Alex adjusted his helmet camera, recording everything. Still, this is big. Really big. Humanity's first contact with alien life. And it's not even alive in the way we understand. The creature pulsed brighter for a moment, then shifted its projections. This time, the images showed strange beings, tall, translucent figures that seemed to glow from within. They moved gracefully, interacting with machines and structures far beyond anything humans had ever built. These must be the ones who created this place, Daniel said, his voice filled with wonder. They look advanced, like they evolved past needing bodies. Rebecca frowned. Or maybe they gave up their bodies willingly. Look at how they interact with those machines. It's almost like they became part of them. Laura nodded slowly. That would explain why this planet feels so empty now. Maybe they left behind these creatures, or whatever this thing is, as guardians or messengers. The crystalline creature responded to Laura's words by pulsing again, this time focusing its light directly on Daniel. He froze, unsure what to do. Then suddenly, he felt something, a faint buzzing in his mind, like a distant voice trying to speak. He blinked, startled. "Did you feel that?" he asked, looking around at the others. "No," Ethan replied sharply. "What did you feel?" "It's hard to explain," Daniel stammered. "Like it's trying to talk to me. Not with words, but with thoughts." Rebecca stepped closer, concern etched on her face. "Daniel, back away. We don't know what this thing is capable of." But Daniel couldn't move. The buzzing grew stronger, clearer. Images flooded his mind. Stars aligning, energy flowing. And finally, a warning. Something dark loomed in the distance, consuming everything in its path. "I think," Daniel began, struggling to form coherent sentences. "I think it's trying to warn us about something. The threat. Something called the Shard." "The Shard?" Alex repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Sounds ominous." Ethan tightened his grip on his utility belt. "If there's a threat out there, we need to know more. Can you ask it questions?" Daniel hesitated, then focused on the creature again. He thought about the questions carefully, projecting them mentally rather than speaking aloud. To his surprise, the creature responded immediately, its glow shifting into new patterns. "It says the Shard is ancient," Daniel translated haltingly. "Older than the creators of this world. It consumes civilizations, feeding on fear and chaos. And it's still out there." Laura shivered despite her suit's temperature controls. "So, what happened to the creators? Did the Shard destroy them?" The creature's glow dimmed slightly, and Daniel sensed sadness in its response. "No," he said softly. "They didn't fight it. Instead, they abandoned their physical forms and merged with their technology. They hoped to survive as pure consciousness. But they left behind these creatures," Rebecca added, gesturing to the glowing being. "Maybe to warn others." Ethan sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Great. So we've got an ancient enemy lurking somewhere, and a bunch of ghostly aliens who ran away instead of fighting it. What does that leave us with?" Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. The creature's glow flickered, and it retreated into the glowing plants, disappearing from sight. The team exchanged uneasy glances. "We should head back to the ship," Ethan said firmly. "We've learned enough for now. Let's regroup and figure out our next move." As they made their way back to the Odyssey, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The Shard, the creators, the glowing ruins, it was all connected. But one question lingered in his mind. Why had the creators chosen humanity to receive their message? And what role were they supposed to play in the galaxy's future? 6 months passed in the blink of an eye, or at least, that's how it felt to the crew of the Odyssey. One moment, they were drifting off into cryo-sleep, and the next, alarms blared as the pods hissed open. The ship's AI, a soft-spoken system named Iris, announced their arrival near the mysterious star system. Ethan Brooks was the first to wake fully. He stretched, shaking off the stiffness that always came after cryo sleep, and checked the ship's status. Everything seemed normal. The others began to stir, groggy but alert. Daniel rubbed his eyes and glanced at the view screen. What he saw took his breath away. The star system was unlike anything they had ever seen. At its center was a dim, reddish sun surrounded by swirling clouds of dust and gas. But one planet stood out, a world bathed in perpetual twilight, glowing faintly with strange, bioluminescent patterns across its surface. It looked alive, as if the entire planet pulsed with energy. "Is that where the signal came from?" Alex asked, leaning over Ethan's shoulder to get a better look. "It matches the coordinates," Rebecca confirmed, typing quickly on her console. "Iris, can you scan the atmosphere?" The AI responded immediately. "Atmosphere is breathable. Surface temperature ranges between 10 and 25 degrees Celsius. Traces of ancient structures detected beneath the terrain." Laura leaned forward, her eyes wide with wonder. "Ancient structures? That means someone, or something, was here before us." Ethan nodded. "We need to land and investigate. Suit up, everyone." Preparations didn't take long. The team donned lightweight environmental suits designed for exploration. Each suit had built-in tools, communication devices, and life support systems. As they gathered in the airlock, Ethan gave a final briefing. "Stay focused," he said firmly. "We don't know what we're walking into. Stick together, follow orders, and report anything unusual." The landing process was smooth. The Odyssey touched down on a flat plain near the glowing patterns. When the hatch opened, the crew stepped onto alien soil for the first time. The ground felt spongy underfoot, and the air smelled faintly metallic, despite being filtered through their suits. Daniel couldn't help but marvel at the view. The sky shimmered with hues of purple and blue, while the glowing patterns on the ground shifted gently, almost like waves. "This place, it's incredible," he murmured. Rebecca, ever practical, pointed toward a cluster of odd shapes in the distance. "Over there, those look like ruins." The team moved cautiously, scanning their surroundings as they approached. The structures turned out to be massive walls carved with intricate designs, symbols and patterns that seemed to tell a story. Some parts were crumbling, overtaken by glowing moss-like growths, but much of it remained intact. "This must have been some kind of city," Laura said, running her gloved hand over the carvings. "But who built it? And why did they leave?" Before anyone could answer, Alex spotted movement nearby. "Did you see that?" he whispered, pointing to a patch of glowing plants. Something shimmered faintly among them, pulsing with light. Daniel stepped closer, curiosity overpowering caution. As he reached out, the shimmering form revealed itself, a crystalline creature, about the size of a dog, with translucent edges that glowed softly. It didn't seem aggressive, just curious. "What is that thing?" Rebecca asked, backing up slightly. "I think it's alive," Laura replied, crouching down to study it. "Look, it's reacting to Daniel." Sure enough, the creature's glow brightened when Daniel extended his hand. Then, without warning, it projected a series of images into the air around them. Stars aligned, planets formed, and civilizations rose and fell, all in dazzling holographic detail. Daniel gasped. "It's showing us history, maybe even the history of whoever lived here." Ethan raised a hand. "Careful. We don't know what this thing is capable of." But Daniel couldn't resist. This was more than they had hoped for. An artifact, a record, perhaps even proof of intelligent life beyond Earth. Whatever secrets lay hidden on this world, they were closer to uncovering them than ever before. Daniel spent the next few days preparing his case. He knew convincing the Global Space Alliance wouldn't be easy. The organization was cautious, especially after past missions had ended in failure or disaster. But Daniel believed this signal was too important to ignore. It wasn't just random noise. It was a message meant for humanity. He gathered all the data he and Rebecca had collected, organizing it into clear charts and graphs. Then he requested an emergency meeting with the Alliance's leadership. When the day came, Daniel stood nervously in front of a room filled with high-ranking officials. Holographic screens displayed the signals patterns behind him as he spoke. "This isn't just another anomaly," Daniel said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "It's a deliberate transmission, repeating every 8 hours. Someone, or something, is trying to get our attention." The room fell silent. Some leaders exchanged skeptical glances, while others leaned forward, intrigued. One man, Admiral Grant, finally broke the silence. "Even if this is real, why should we risk sending a crew so far? We don't know what's waiting out there." Daniel nodded. He expected this question. "Because it could change everything," he replied. "If we find who sent this, we might learn things about technology, biology, even ourselves. And if it's a threat, wouldn't you rather know now than later?" Rebecca, sitting quietly in the corner, added her support. "The signal contains coordinates. If we go, we'll at least have a destination. Ignoring it means leaving a mystery unsolved, and possibly putting Earth in danger." After hours of debate, the decision was made. The Alliance agreed to send a mission to investigate. They chose Captain Ethan Brooks to lead the team. A tall, calm man with sharp eyes, Ethan had years of experience commanding space missions. Though he rarely showed emotion, those who worked with him trusted his judgment completely. The crew was assembled quickly. Alongside Daniel and Rebecca, 2 others joined the team. Laura Bennett, a biologist with a passion for alien life forms, brought expertise that might prove crucial. Alex Rivera, the pilot, was known for his quick reflexes and love of adventure. Together, they formed a small but capable group ready to face whatever lay ahead. Their ship, the Odyssey, was state-of-the-art. Sleek and silver, it bristled with advanced technology, including cryo-sleep pods designed to keep the crew safe during the long journey. Before departure, the team met aboard the vessel for final preparations. Tension hung in the air as everyone went over their roles one last time. "I've run simulations," Alex said, tapping on a control panel. "The trip will take 6 months in cryo-sleep. Assuming nothing goes wrong, we'll wake up close to the target system." Laura frowned, flipping through pages of notes. "What happens if something does go wrong? What if the signal leads us into a trap?" Ethan stepped forward, his presence calming the room. "We prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. That's why we're here, to handle whatever comes our way." As the launch date approached, emotions ran high. Daniel spent hours staring out the window at Earth below, wondering if he'd ever see it again. Rebecca worked tirelessly, double-checking equipment and running tests. Laura tried to lighten the mood with jokes, though her laughter sometimes sounded forced. Only Alex seemed unfazed, humming old Earth songs as he tinkered with the ship's engines. Finally, the day arrived. The Odyssey launched smoothly, breaking free of Earth's gravity and heading toward the stars. As the crew settled into their cryopods, Daniel felt a mix of excitement and fear. He thought about the signal, the coordinates, and what waited at the end of their journey. Whatever it was, humanity's future might depend on what they discovered. The pods sealed shut, and darkness enveloped the crew. For 6 long months, they would drift in suspended animation, dreaming of answers hidden among the stars. In the year 2147, Earth was a planet buzzing with life and progress. Humanity had reached heights once thought impossible. Cities floated above oceans, machines performed tasks faster than any human could, and space travel had become as common as flying across continents. Yet, amidst all this advancement, one thing remained unchanged. Humans still needed 8 hours of sleep each night. Daniel Carter sat in his small office aboard the orbital station Elysium. The room was cluttered with papers, screens, and half-empty coffee mugs. He was an astrophysicist, known for his wild ideas about how humans could achieve even more if they tapped into their subconscious minds while sleeping. Most people dismissed him as overly imaginative, but Daniel didn't care. He believed there was something special about humanity's need for rest, something that made them unique among the stars. That evening, as the artificial lights dimmed to mimic nighttime on Earth, Daniel leaned back in his chair and stared at the screen in front of him. It displayed streams of data collected from deep space telescopes. His job was to analyze these signals, searching for anything unusual. For weeks, he had found nothing but static and random bursts of noise. But tonight felt different. A faint blip appeared on the monitor, a signal repeating every 8 hours like clockwork. At first, Daniel thought it might be interference from the station's systems or a glitch in the software. But when he ran diagnostics, everything checked out fine. The signal wasn't coming from inside the solar system. It was coming from far beyond, near the edge of the galaxy. Curiosity burned inside him. He called Rebecca Hayes, a fellow scientist stationed nearby. Rebecca was practical and level-headed, often grounding Daniel's flights of fancy with hard facts. When she arrived, her eyebrows rose skeptically at the sight of his messy workspace. "What is it this time?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Another alien message written in Morse code." "No," Daniel replied, pointing at the screen. "This is real. Look, it repeats every 8 hours. Like it knows we sleep." Rebecca frowned, leaning closer to examine the data. She adjusted some settings on the computer, isolating parts of the signal. After a few minutes, she admitted, "It's not random noise. There's structure here. Patterns." Together, they worked late into the simulated night, decoding fragments of the mysterious transmission. Slowly, coordinates began to emerge, numbers indicating a location deep in uncharted space. The implications were staggering. Was someone, or something, trying to communicate with them? Or was it a trap? "This changes everything," Daniel whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. "If we can figure out who sent this, we might finally understand our place in the universe." Rebecca hesitated. "Or we could be walking straight into danger. We don't know what's waiting out there." But Daniel couldn't let go of the idea. Humanity had always been explorers, pushing boundaries and taking risks. This signal was another step forward, another mystery to solve. As the station's lights brightened to simulate dawn, Daniel made up his mind. He would convince the Global Space Alliance to send a mission to investigate. Little did he know, this decision would set off a chain of events that would test humanity's limits and reveal secrets hidden among the stars.